the cinematic fever dream nobody asked for. In August 2026, Chinese cinema experienced a box office phenomenon that defied every rule of basic logic, art history, and computer science. The film was called Niu Lai, a 3D animated feature that proved a movie doesn't need Pixar-level rendering, a coherent marketing strategy, or even a functioning animation engine to make millions. It just needs to be so aggressively, unapologetically terrible that people feel morally obligated to buy a ticket just to see if it actually exists in real life. Two people used laptops and architectural software. Most animated blockbusters hire armies of overworked CGI artists, burn through hundreds of millions of dollars, and spend half a decade rendering individual strands of hair. Niu Lai, on the other hand, was brought to life by a grand total of two people, director Tixin Yumeng and his mother, Sun Lifeng. Their production company, Dalian Jingyuan, didn't start out as a Hollywood-style animation powerhouse. Until July 2021, it was literally an interior design and home renovation business specializing in floor plans and wallpaper choices. Naturally, when Tixin decided to make an animated movie about a calf to honor his father, because 2021 was the year of the ox, he didn't bother downloading industry-standard animation software like Maya or Blender. That would be far too conventional. Instead, he opted for SketchUp, a software program designed primarily for civil engineers drawing kitchen countertops and office cubicles. He bought secondhand computers, composed the music himself, had his mom write the screenplay, and both of them voiced almost every single character. The entire endeavor took 5 agonizing years and cost roughly a few thousand RMB out of pocket, a Microsoft PowerPoint deck on a damp toaster. The result of making an animated epic inside software intended for kitchen renovations was pure, unadulterated cinematic gold. The animation quality didn't just miss the industry standard, it launched itself into a completely different dimension of awkwardness. Watching Niu Lai was less like viewing a feature film and more like watching a Microsoft PowerPoint presentation running on a damp toaster. Characters didn't walk so much as float across static, low-res textures. Clipping glitches were a way of life. Cows regularly glided straight through solid granite mountains. Character models merged into horrifying multi-limbed chimeras during emotional dialogues, and the laws of physics were treated as a mild suggestion rather than a rule. Marketing? Absolutely non-existent. The studio released a single watercolor-style poster online, dusted off their hands, and called it a day. No trailers, no press junkets, and no red carpet premieres. Theater managers were so utterly baffled by the total lack of promotional material that several theater employees took out paintbrushes and drew custom posters by hand just to fill the empty glass display frames in their lobbies. The plot: an existential crisis for a 3D cow. Despite looking like a video game demo from 1995 that failed quality assurance, Niu Lai actually had a storyline, and it was surprisingly dark and philosophical. The story follows Niu Lai, an anxious little calf who is terrified of pretty much everything and lives under the constant protection of his mother. One day, he follows a lark into a surreal dreamscape that quickly turns into a brutal boot camp for survival. First, he meets a mystical serpent who delivers a stern existential lecture. No place in this world is safe, kid. Get it together. Then he meets a heroic leopard named Baola, who protects the herd from wolves despite being ostracized by the paranoid cattle. Tragedy strikes when wolves attack, and Niu Lai's mother sacrifices herself to save him. Driven by grief, Niu Lai steps up, fights off wolves, and goes to war against human bulldozers destroying the forest. Then, in a classic twist, Niu Lai wakes up. It was all just a fever dream, but the courage he gained in the nightmare stays with him as he reunites with his father. It's an emotional fable about grief, courage, and environmental destruction, all rendered with characters that look like untextured cardboard boxes sliding across ice, from a $1,000 flop to a viral goldmine. When Niu Lai hit theaters on August 5th, 2026, the box office response was as cold as a Siberian winter. Over its first 9 days, the film made a pathetic 7,169 RMB, around $1,000 USD, from a grand total of 236 brave souls nationwide. Theaters quietly slashed showtimes down to single digits, preparing to bury the film forever. Then, Chinese social media did its magic. Clips of the film's hilarious animation glitches began circulating on Bilibili and Douyin. Viewers were mesmerized. It wasn't just bad. It was so bad it transcends space and time. Film critics compared the hysteria to cult classics like Tommy Wiseau's The Room or the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Suddenly, Gen Z moviegoers started organizing group outings to see Niu Lai as an ironic rite of passage. People drove miles across town, piled into theaters, and cheered every time a 3D cow glided sideways through a solid rock wall. Demand exploded overnight. Theaters were forced to scramble and re-add hundreds of daily screenings. In a matter of days, Niu Lai went from making pocket change to pulling in millions of RMB. By the end of its theatrical run, the film racked up an astounding 28.67 million RMB, over $4 million USD, easily breaking into the top 10 highest-grossing Chinese animated films of 2026 and yielding one of the highest return on investment ratios in film history. Why the world needed a house design miracle. In an era where Hollywood spends $300 million on hyper-polished CG blockbusters that feel like they were assembled by a sterile corporate algorithm, and where people worry about AI taking over art, Niu Lai was a breath of fresh, chaotic air. It proved that audiences will happily trade pristine 4K rendering for genuine human passion, even if that passion looks like an architectural glitch. Tixin Yumeng and his mom didn't let a lack of money, training, or appropriate software stop them. They took a kitchen design program, a couple of old laptops, and a dream, accidentally creating the ultimate box office miracle of 2026.